The world is facing an unprecedented time where society, the government, and corporations need to move at the same pace and at the same time. Collaboration in breaking the barrier collectively is needed so everyone can recover together and stronger. The C20 represents the voices that are at the heart of every policy made by the people in power. These voices are essential to all the lives on this planet. Voices on the well-being of migrant workers and vulnerable groups, on access of global health and vaccines, on women empowerment and equality, to the issue of the environment sustainability. These will be fought for through 7 working groups: vaccine access and global health, gender equality, environment, climate justice and energy transition, taxation and sustainable finance, SDGs and humanitarian, education, digitalization and civic space, and anti-corruption.
So COVID disrupted the school systems across the Pacific in every capacity. So even at university level, our biggest university, the University of the South Pacific, wasn't able to help their students stay in contact and finish their units and their courses.
We need a lot of vaccines to come. For instance, since December, we have run out of stock of AstraZeneca. So there are many people who maybe took first jab and they are waiting to take the second jab.
Kita yang wira swasta ya, yang utama sekali yang paling dirasanya ekonomi. Kita nggak bisa kadang-kadang kalau kayak kaki 5 kita dagang begini, waktu kita dibatasin. Prokes ya wajib lah kita dalam kondisi lagi begini kan. Itu aja kalau dampaknya gitu.
Masih banyak paradigma bahwa kami itu adalah orang-orang yang dikutuk, orang-orang yang menularkan suatu penyakit.
Recently, the Japanese government is promoting gender equality, but the progress is slower than planned. The gender gap in Japan is the largest among OECD countries. The youth are not happy living with conventional gender stereotypes.
These are the actual challenges that we need to address together. The voices, ideas, innovations, and solidarity of the society are key to a change at scale. The C20 brings these voices to the table of dialogue with the government and the people who are accountable for the change.
I think that what governments can do, especially the government in Fiji, is allocate more funds for education. So we need more teachers and we need more support for teachers.
The government has to procure more vaccines to support the citizens or engage more development partners who will support us so that we get more vaccines in the country.
Pemda pemerintah pusat buat membuka lapangan kerja yang nggak berbelit-belit persyaratannya, terutama kayak
perhatikan untuk dari sisi kehidupan kami ini, terutama dari sisi ekonomi. Lakukan pemberdayaan yang bersentuhan langsung seperti wirausaha, karena sesadar-sadarnya bahwa penyandang disabilitas itu tidak semua memiliki latar belakang pendidikan yang baik.
Thanks to the civil society, we have seen some improvement, but there is still so much more to do. We, the youth, are striving for a Japanese society that respects individual people and their choices.
This is the time for us to work together and tackle challenges with the people and for recover stronger. We're here to make your voices matter. We're here to make sure that you are heard.
Also, good morning for all the participants from all over the world that are joining us virtually. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu. May peace be upon us. And we do hope everyone is in a good health and protected from COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Veronica Krasnasari. I am the master ceremony for today. And before we start our event, allow me to share the house rule of the C20 summit, which can also be seen in the screen above. Please always be reminded of these rules for the next 3 days, as safeguarding is not only the committee's responsibilities or participants' responsibilities, but also everybody's responsibilities. In addition to the house rules, we also like to invite the representative of Hilton Resort Hotel to share the health and safety arrangement and evacuation route with us to ensure our event runs smoothly. For Hilton Resort Hotel, please, Mr. Wayan Ariana, you may have the floor.
Cek. Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, namo buddhaya, dan salam rahayu buat kita semua. Selamat sore Bapak Ibu yang terhormat, para peserta meeting. Selamat datang di Hilton Bali Resort. Izinkan saya selaku Safety and Security Manager untuk membawakan safety briefing untuk sore hari ini. Baik, Bapak Ibu peserta meeting, untuk diketahui hari ini kita tidak sedang melakukan drill untuk sistem kebakaran yang kita punya. Jadi jika Bapak Ibu mendengar alarm kebakaran dan perintah evakuasi dari sistem public announcement kami, yang Bapak Ibu harus lakukan adalah tetap tenang dan jangan panik. Segera keluar dari ruangan ini melalui pintu exit yang tersedia untuk selanjutnya diarahkan menuju assembly point. Tim emergency response team kami akan mengarahkan Bapak Ibu ke titik aman berkumpul yang ada di areal parkir. Untuk emergensi gempa bumi, karena bencana ini tidak bisa kita prediksi, jika terjadi goncangan hebat, segera lindungi kepala Bapak Ibu menggunakan meja dan kursi yang ada di depan Bapak Ibu, atau dengan berlindung di pojokan pilar bangunan ini. Setelah goncangan berhenti, silahkan keluar dengan tenang dari ruangan ini untuk menuju ke assembly point yang ada di areal parkir kami. Bapak Ibu akan dipandu oleh tim emergency hotel yang siap bertugas jika terjadi situasi emergency. Demikian safety briefing sore ini. Atas perhatiannya kami ucapkan terima kasih dan selamat mengikuti acara selanjutnya. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Mr. Wayan. And it is a pleasure to be here with you all in the middle of the stunning weather of Bali. I know it's a bit raining, yeah, but it's okay. And at this beautiful place at Hilton Resort Hotel in Nusa Dua. Welcome to our beautiful country, Indonesia, to the beautiful island goddess of Bali, the home of colorful, spiritual, and unique culture that makes it a paradise on earth. Also, the virtual participant, please turn on the camera. Maybe you can raise your hand and say hi. Hi, all right. And everybody, anyone from Europe? Anybody here from Europe? Team Europe. All right, I want to hear people from America. Is there any from America? Okay. Let me hear from Asia. All right. So happy to be here with you all. All right. Before we move to the next session, I would like to invite each and every one of you, both virtually and who attends in person, to stand up and give us our utmost respect to the Indonesian national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Thank you. We may all sit down. Excellencies, our distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, the world has seen the recent devastating tragedy that happened in Kanjuruhan Stadium, Malang, East Java. The C20 thoughts our prayers with the victims and people affected during this difficult period, and we want to extend our sympathy to those families who have lost their loved one. I would like to ask that we observe a moment of silence as a sign of respect to all the victims of Kanjuruhan Stadium. Thank you, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, on this very special occasion, please allow me to extend our warmest greeting to all distinguished speaker and participant. First, Excellency, Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, the Minister of Health, Republic of Indonesia, who is here with us virtually. Excellency Professor Chok Oka Sukawati, the Vice Governor of Bali Province, Republic of Indonesia. Om Swastiastu. Excellencies, Ambassador Sri Manoj Kumar Bharti, the Ambassador of India to the Republic of Indonesia. Excellency Ambassador Armando Gonzalez Alvarez Reina, the Ambassador of Mexico to Republic of Indonesia and ASEAN. Honorable Mr. Justinus Prastowo, Special Staff to the Minister of Finance, Republic of Indonesia. Honorable Mr. Yudop Dwinanda Priyadi, Expert Staff to the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resource for Strategic Planning, Republic of Indonesia. Sore, Pak. Honorable Mr. Sigit Reliantoro, Co-Chair of Environment Deputies Meeting, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Republic of Indonesia. Excellency representative of G20 countries who are attending this event both virtually and in person with us. Our Honorable Mr. Sugeng Bahagijo, the C20 Chair, and all C20 leaders. All right, allow me to greet you all. Welcome to the C20 Summit, Voicing Realizing a Just Recovery for All. All right, this 3 days hybrid C20 Summit is presented by C20 Indonesia as a part of the effort to finalize the journey and commitments of C20 Indonesia to G20 officials and stakeholders, and to deliver the final communique and policy pack with which will be handed over to G20 leaders for the G20 Summit. And I am very excited to inform you that throughout the next 3 sessions, we will also have a parallel side event presented by the C20 Working Group, as well as the C20 Bazaar and Exhibition, where you can visit the local communities and civil society organization booth and engage with them closer. I would also like to inform you that this summit is being relayed on Zoom and live from YouTube Civil 20. All sessions in this seminar will be delivered in English and will be interpreted in Bahasa Indonesia as well as sign language. To access the interpretation feature on Zoom, you might click the button on your screen located at the bottom right side at the globe symbol title interpretation, and then choose Bahasa Indonesia if you wish to translate. So, without any further ado, it is an honor to invite you to the podium to deliver the opening remarks. Please allow me to invite Mr. Sugeng Bahagijo, the Chair of C20 Indonesia, to deliver his warm remark. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to Mr. Sugeng Bahagijo.
Om Swastiastu, salam sejahtera, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to Bali, Excellency Cokorda Oka Arta Ardana Sukawati, the Vice Governor of Bali, Excellency Minister Budi Gunadi Sadikin, Excellency Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati, Minister of Finance, and Mr. Justinus Prastowo from Minister of Finance, Excellency Mr. Yudo Dwinanda Priyadi from Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, Excellency Mrs. Laksmi Dewanti, Co-Chair of Environment Deputies Meeting, from Climate Sustainability Working Group of the G20 and Director General of Climate Control and Minister of Environment and Forestry, Excellency Mr. Sigit Reliantoro, Co-Chair of Environment Deputies Meeting, Climate Sustainability Working Group of the G20 and Director General of Pollution and Environment Damage Control, Ministry of Environment and Forestry of Indonesia. Excellency Ambassador Sri Manoj Kumar Bhakti, Ambassador of India to Republic of Indonesia, Excellency Ambassador Armando Gonzalo Alvarez Reina, the Ambassador of Mexico to the Republic of Indonesia and ASEAN, my CSO colleagues and leaders, and my friends, allow me to say that I'm most happy that you are able to come to this meeting. It has been more than 8 months. C20 has working since last year, November or October, and now is the C20 Summit. So civil C20 summit has important in two senses. One is that we have demonstrated that Civil 20 deliver a task and its role to engage with G20 leaders. The second, more importantly, it is testimony of the engaged citizen globally and the health of democracy, both here in Indonesia and internationally. We are taking seriously the job and the task to gather and collect all CSO voices. We are deeply aware and recognize a high degree of diversity among and within CSO community, both globally and nationally. And we are using open method in choosing CSO representative, open membership, and open deliberation in building and formulating our document and demands. We are using rotating method and decision-making internally in our day-to-day work. So C20 co-chair and Sherpa had played decisive role in ensuring communication, fundraising, and all kind of decision in supporting the work of C20. Thanks to democracy in Indonesia internationally, today we are able to gather in this C20 summit. First of all, our high appreciation to the government Indonesia for ensuring our freedom, for ensuring our independence and autonomy in choosing CSO membership and leadership within CSO Indonesia and international without interferences. Thanks to international cooperation and solidarity, we gather here in Bali to imagine better future. We all believe that inclusive international cooperation is the only way to recover better. But we need to address weaknesses of the current international cooperation, and G20 leaders have the opportunity to make better changes and reform needed. That is why we align ourselves to the voice of Greta Thunberg, the voice of the future, that we need to act now, and we are running out of time. We have similar concern with Black Matter lives, that all government should treat all its citizens equally and in dignity. And also we strongly support the struggle of the rights of persons with disabilities and women's rights, because no one should not be left behind. G20 leaders is the best hope for humanity, because right now, today, as we gather here, is the worst time and the best time. After more than 2 years of pandemic, of suffering and death suffered by million citizens, today we are facing the war in Ukraine. The best time, because we have the G20 leaders and cooperation, is the only visible and strong hand that can change the course of humanity and history. G20 leaders need to do the right thing. You have to put saving lives first before profits. G20 leaders to put first common good before growth. So in conclusion, our tasks, our demands for G20 is simple and attainable. Choose the future instead of the past. Because in the past, you have focused only for growth and growth, ignoring the social and environment costs, which for ecology and the earth. Aim for equality and inclusion, and oppose discrimination and exclusion everywhere and anywhere. Use your power to deliver your promises to eradicate corruption and close government. Use power to design more inclusive globalization, a winner for all system where all citizens in global south and global north is prosper. And finally, use power to do good for all human race, and the best use of power is empowering the unpowerful people. Use your power to create conditions for peace rather than war. Make a peace, not a war. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yes. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much Bapak Sugeng. Dan selanjutnya, I want to invite Profesor Chok Oka Sukawati, the Vice Governor of Bali Province, for delivering his warm remark in the opening of C20 Summit today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give big round applause for Professor Chok Oka Sukawati.
Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Shalom, Namo Buddhaya, Rahayu, Rahayu, Rahayu. Excellency, the Minister of Health Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Budi Gunadi Sadikin, who joined this meeting virtually. Excellency, the Ambassador of India to the Republic of Indonesia. Excellency, the Ambassador of Mexico for the Republic of Indonesia and ASEAN. Honorable Special Staff to the Minister of Finance Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Yutinus. Honorable Expert Staff to the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources for Strategic Planning Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Yuda Dwinando. Honorable Co-Chairs of Environmentals Deputies meeting the Ministry of Environmentals and Forestry Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Sigit. And Honorable Chairs of C20 Indonesia, Bapak Sugeng Bahagyo. Excellencies, representative of G20 countries who are attending the event, both virtually and present with us today. To begin with, allow me to extend the utmost gratitude to Ida Hyang Widiwasa, God the Almighty, for the blessing given to us so that we can attend the opening ceremony of C20 Summit at Hilton Resort Nusa Dua, Bali today. On this good occasion, I would like to give a warm welcome to all delegates of the C20 or C20 Summit to the island of the God, island of paradise, and island of love. I wish the positive vibration and balance of Bali natures and cultures may leave a good impression of all of you. I also would like to give the highest appreciation to all delegates for the good participation and contribution to this event. I am certain the discussion will be very benefit for Indonesian G20 presidency. C20 Summit is a great platform for civil society organizations around the world to face their mission at the multilateral levels. I believe their noble mission deserves to get appreciation and support from the governments, local community, and other GSO. World leaders need to listen closely to the agenda of civil society aside from politics and economy, because it matters a lot to just and fair development and sustainable livelihood. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude these remarks, I hope this summit can give a positive contribution to our better futures, and I hope we can gather all innovate ideas during session and be inspired to try implementing such ideas in our country. I wish the best for the summit. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi 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 Om.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor Shokoka Sukawati, for the key message you delivered throughout the remark. We would like to humbly request Mr. Vice Governor of Bali to stay on the stage for the next session. And now I would like to invite once again Mr. Sugeng Bahagijo and Mrs. Bini Bushori, Steering Committee of C20, to go to the stage to symbolically open the C20 Summit. Also, the Chair and Sherpa of C20 would like to invite 11 international participants to be dropped with Bali traditional udang and Prada belt. We invite these following names to the stage. First, Mr. Moritz Butcher, Next, Mrs. Alice Koji from Netherlands, Mr. Aoi Horiuchi from Japan, Mrs. Guillermina Alanis from Argentina, Mr. Harsh Jaiti from India, Mrs. Isabella Suarez from the Philippines, Mrs. Nidhi Asogoyal from India, Mr. Praman Adhikari from Nepal, Mrs. Sanwu Vivian Lee from Korea, Mrs. Teresa Guifri from Italy. Last but not least, Mr. Yosef Ibrahim Al-Hosani from UEA. So udeng is a traditional Balinese headpiece that the Vice Governor also wearing. We call it here udeng. It is to be worn for the guy. For the woman, we'll have a Prada belt. That's also a traditional Balinese wardrobe or outfit. Okay, now everybody's looking pretty and handsome. Let's take a proper picture together. Okay, if anyone may take off the mask. If it's not, it's okay. Big smile. Okay, also for Mr. Freddy from Netherlands, wants to give some gifts from the Netherlands to Professor Chop. Alright, thank you Mr. Sugeng Bahagijo, Mrs. Beni Bukhari, and Professor Chok Oka Sukawati. Thank you, C20 leaders and Mr. Vice Governor. It is a huge pleasure for us to have Professor Chok Oka Sukawati joining us today. But unfortunately, Mr. Vice Governor has another duty to attend, so let's give our warmest applause for Mr. Vice Governor for his time and kind support for the C20. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that prior to C20 Summit, the C20 members have been traveling across Indonesia from Sumatra to Papua, both virtually and in person, advocating and discussing C20 priority issues with people from different backgrounds, including with grassroots communities. I'm not going to spill the spoilers, so let's have a look on the journey of the C20 People Caravan through the upcoming video.
Senang sekali ya, akhirnya kita bisa melaksanakan acara People's Caravan dari Jakarta ke Bali, dan harapannya kita semua bisa menyuarakan apa yang menjadi aspirasi masyarakat Indonesia. Satu salam perkenalan dan salam pelepasan dari kami semua Sekretariat C20 Indonesia. Terima kasih, selamat jalan.
Dampaknya hasil dari pembakarannya ketika melepaskan emisi yang begitu tinggi gitu ya, itu akan berdampak terhadap manusia, berdampak terhadap suhu, berdampak terhadap hewan gitu ya, berdampak terhadap kualitas pertanian gitu. Itu di dalam konteks pencemaran udaranya, pencemaran daratnya, tanahnya, tentunya itu juga akan berdampak terhadap kualitas tanah, air bawah tanah. Karena apa? Mereka pun juga mengeluarkan gitu ya, ada drainase yang dibuat mereka untuk mengeluarkan zat-zat kimia, bahan-bahan kimia.
Recover together, recover stronger. Civil 20, you are.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome citizen of the world, participant of the C20 People Caravan. Alright, I want you to introduce yourself, where you're from, and from what island you're coming from.
Good afternoon, the honorable government officials and the C20 leaders, and also ladies and gentlemen. We are from the People Caravan Roadshow. My name is Irene Bougainville Martin, and I'm from West Kalimantan.
Hello, my name is Hildanida Al Istiqlal, and I'm from Lombok, West Nusa Tenggara.
Hello everyone, my name is Erni Yulianti, and I'm from East Java.
Hello everyone, my name is Astrid. I'm from Batam, Riau Island.
Hi everyone, my name is Tedisha. You guys can call me Teddy. I'm from Semarang, Indonesia, precisely in Central Java. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Anugrah Wijay. I'm from Papua.
Hello everyone, my name is Ahmad Rizky Parawansa, but you can call me Ares. I'm from Parepare, South Sulawesi.
Hello everyone, I'm Jabar Kusuma Perdana from Depok, West Java Province.
Wow, very diverse from Sumatra to Papua. Give a very standing ovation for them. Wow, they work hard. So, okay, I really appreciate your enthusiasm and spirit of solidarity. Thank you very much. For all caravan participants, you may go back to your seats. Thank you so much. Wow, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are moving on to the next session, which is our main event. Before we invite the C20 working group to come on stage, we would like to indulge you in a scene painting performance by Niar Laza. Please welcome Niar Laza.
In our world, the crisis arrived just before our eyes. Hunger and poverty, climate and disaster, war and conflict. Hear my voice, hear my dreams. Let us make a world in which I believe. Hear my word. Like thunder it came, very unpredictable, very sudden. The pandemic shocked us, how small and how fragile we are in front of it. Through these you make no choice but to prepare for the future. We, the people, demand the world's leader to strengthen the global health architecture. These words of fire, of hope and desire, now let them free. In this part of the world, thousands and thousands of souls died in the Ukraine-Russian conflict, in the Palestine-Israel war, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in many parts of this world. Let us make a world in which I believe. This is not the time for us to point guns at each other. The war will never end if we are never willing to end it. Hear my cry. Let me see a change. Through these eyes. In our world, crises have reached our feet as often as we touch the flood water, as familiar as our nose breathing the polluted air, as often as our eyes see every mountain of waste in the ocean and sea. Our planet is dying, and we are sinking. Let us make a world in which I believe. Hear my word. Hear my cry. Let me see a change. Through these eyes. It left us all powerless, and what about us? The people, the children, the elder, the women, the person with disabilities, we are the most affected, yet the most forgotten. Let us make a world us to listen to our voices. Today, our voices must not be repressed. Our rights must not be corrupted, because we are not just voices echoing and being forgotten. Our voices matters.
Hear my word. Hear my cry. Let me see a change through these eyes. You may think I won't be heard, still I'll raise this hand, spread these words of fire.
We the people demand you.
Hope and desire, now let them free.
Hear our voices out and hear our choices
Hear
out.
my voice. Hear my Let us make a world in which we believe, in which we believe. Hear my Hear my voice. Hear my dreams. Let us make a world in which I believe. Hear my words. Hear my cry. Let me see a change through these eyes. You may think I won't be heard, still I'll raise this hand, spread these words of fire, of hope and desire. Now let them free. Hear my voice.
Wow, what a strong and powerful message, and what a talent. We are still living in unpredicted time where crisis and inequality still persist, and only through solidarity, strong and united commitment to leave no one behind can we recover stronger together. All right, before we move on to the next session, I'm a bit nervous, all right? And anyone here also nervous? No? Okay, because I have to speak in English all the time. That's why I'm nervous. So I'm wondering, does anybody know what the C20 tagline here? Now you're nervous. All right, if you don't know. Anyone know? You can raise your hand. What is our C Summit tagline? It's in the stage. All right, so I want to say C20, and I want you to join me and say, "You are heard." Okay, how about it? Because there's a lot of silence here. I want you to join me. Okay, I said C20, you can say, "You are heard." All right? Sure. How about that? We are the C20. You're right. We are here on the C20. Okay, C20. Okay, the right place is very energetic. Now, the middle. C20. Okay, sir. Very nice. I bet you have your lunch today. How about this side? C20. Okay. Have no lunch today? I cannot hear you. More. C20. All right. Applause for everybody. So happy to hear more voices other than mine. Okay, because after this, we will have the more serious event, which is the plenary session. All right, I would like to invite Ibu Risnawati Utami as the Shu Sherpa of C20, Anselmo Lee, the steering committee of C20, Arianto Nugroho, co-chair of C20, and Guillermo Alanis, International Advisory Committee of C20, to come up to the stage to deliver the C20 political statement. Ladies and gentlemen, please give our round of applause for distinguished speakers.
His Excellency, Mr. Ambassador Sri Manoj and the Honorable Government of Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of C20 Indonesia, we would like to deliver the political statement. We are gathering here today amidst crises and conflicts wrapping around the world. It suffices to say that we all share the misery and sadness experienced by millions of our brothers and sisters caused by humanitarian and climate change crisis, rising inflation, food, energy, and energy shortage. This is the most disappointing time of the history of the G20. Never has there been a precedent where G20 is so divided that numerous ministerial meetings failed to produce joint ministerial declarations. This is a huge concern for civil society organizations, as it shows that the G20 has not been able to put aside their differences, instead focus on their own interests. We call to all leaders of the G20 to end their own self-interest and work as united front to solve the crisis. It is time to collaborate to promote world peace and humanity by enhancing recovery efforts to solve the current global situation.
Recover together, recover stronger is a commitment of the G20 under Indonesia's presidency as a principle to navigate policy solutions to the world's problems. However, it can only be achieved if G20 collaborates with other countries that have the same common goals, that are committed to a concerted effort to recover from the pandemic, leaving no one behind, with input and support from civil society organizations. G20 prioritizes 3 issues: global health architecture, sustainable energy transition, and digital transformation. However, without adhering to the principles of justice, equity, inclusiveness, collaboration, and sharing financial resources, these priorities may not be able to solve the root causes of the problems. C20 therefore prioritizes 4 issues that reflect this principle: just and inclusive global health architecture, climate justice and just energy transition, tax justice and inclusive sustainable finance, inclusive digital transformation, taking into account the urgency of gender equality, persons with disability, humanitarian actions, civic space, and anti-corruption. C20 addresses them as cross-cutting issues.
Just and inclusive global health architecture, ensuring the access of vaccines and universal health coverage for all citizens, improving manufacturing capacity in LMICs through open sharing of research data, knowledge, and technology is fundamental for pandemic recovery. Climate justice and just energy transition, ensuring the access of clean energy and acknowledging women, children, communities, and persons with disabilities in decision-making of mandatory. Furthermore, G20 should show its commitment to just energy transition by not prolonging the life of coal-fired power plant. Tax justice and inclusive sustainable finance. Recovering from the pandemic, multidimensional crisis, and financing climate action require fundamental change in global tax regime and availability of sustainable finance. The G20 should implement the world's tax, impose digital services tax, and support the call to establish the UN tax conventions and take actions on global debt architecture reform under the UN supervision, including creating mechanism for clear, more timely, and orderly debt restructuring. Furthermore, G20 must ensure that financial institutions are committed to the principle of sustainability by mandating the establishment of green sustainable taxonomy.
Inclusive digital transformation. Digital transformation should provide solutions for people and opportunities for better life. The transformation should protect humans and humanity, gender equality, right of persons with disabilities, and civic space. Principle of gender justice, recognizing gender-based rights, and promoting rights of persons with disabilities should be in forefront of G20 policies. Safeguard policies to eliminate gender and disability violence in the workplaces, particularly in high-risk work sectors, including in the digital platforms, should be a priority. Expanding and protecting civic space should be a prerequisite to ensure the inclusion of civil society and multi-stakeholder in the G20 policy formulation. Before I read the final sentence, I would like to invite all to stand up to take collective action. Can you all stand up? Stronger together, recover together, and recover stronger is a principle of G20, but I believe C20 should be stronger than the slogan. That's why I want to propose, after I read the last sentence, I will say C20 recovery. 4, and then you have to say peace first, and second, justice and equality. Okay? So when you say peace, shouting, and we have to right hands up, peace.
Peace.
And justice.
Justice.
And 2 hands up, equality.
Equality.
And
All
then
right.
last time I'll say 4, and then all 3 times. All. Alright? So we have to shout so that the leaders of G20 listen to us. All right? Are you ready? Okay, one more exercise.
Yeah.
C20 recovery for peace.
Justice. Equality.
For
all.
Okay, are you ready? Okay, let me read the final sentence. You have to speak as loudly as possible so that G20 leaders in their country, United States, Russia, China, all over the world, they can listen. Okay?
Okay.
Finally, as a global citizen, let's read together, okay? Okay. Finally, we as a global citizen would like to remind G20 and all of us put aside all differences and prioritize crisis solution to ensure just recovery for all citizens across the world. C20 recovery for peace,
Justice. Equality. All. Yay. Applause for everybody. I like the energy. Thank you, leaders. You may all return to your seat. Now we have a little bit of warm up because there's a lot of sitting. So it's good that we're standing up. All right, so next, the coordinators of the C20 working group will deliver the C20 policy pack, which consists of priority recommendation from each working group to the G20 leaders from all of the hard work and advocacies they have been doing for the past 1 year. So without further ado, I would like to invite the coordinators working group to the stage.
Vaksin akses.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. His Excellency, Ministers of the Republic of Indonesia, Ambassadors and Vice Governor of Bali, Honorable Chairs, Sherpa, Coordinators of Working Groups, and all distinguished delegates and participants of Civil 20. What a pleasure to deliver the process and the result of policy pack developed by C20 Vaccine Access and Global Health Working Groups. My name is Agung Prakoso from Indonesia for Global Justice as coordinators of Vaccine Access and Global Health Working Groups. I'm standing here with my colleague as coordinators, Rachel Ong from Global Fund Advocates Network Asia Pacific, Angela Taneja from Oxfam, and Daniel Marguari from Spiritia Foundation. Civil 20 Vaccine Access and Global Health Working Groups have more than 100 members from G20 countries and beyond G20 countries, with 30 until 50 members are engaged in every discussion around developing recommendation, thanks to all members of the Vaccine Access and Global Health Working Groups. Chairs, in a lot of discussion of C20 Vaccine Access and Global Health Working Group, we agreed the importance of civil society roles, especially in COVID-19 pandemic crisis, and we are in the strong position that in health sectors, especially in pandemic crisis, no one is safe until everyone is. One spirit to leave no one behind. Chair, by following the G20 Health Working Group's key priorities, The Vaccine Access and Global Health Working Groups present the following priorities area with key recommendation of G20. This is our strategy to have an effective advocacy and deliver this issue well. Inclusiveness of the global health architecture become our first priority issues. It's based on our spirit to put people-centered approach with marginalized groups, vulnerable groups, and key population as the center of health policies. We note Indonesia as presidency put the restructuring global health architecture as the main pillars or priorities in the G20 process. This initiative includes some potential issues such as financial intermediary fund. C20, Vaccine Access and Global Health Working Groups note the concern of the transparency, inclusivity, and meaningful engagement in decision-making and any discussion around this initiative. For those, we call in inclusiveness of the global health architecture as the spirit to push the implementation of civil society and LMIC's representative on board of FIF. Chair, the inequality of access to COVID-19 is still exists. We also face the same problem with access to medicine on other diseases such as HIV, TB, malaria, cancer, etc. We are in the strong position that intellectual property monopoly is the main barrier to access to medicines, especially in COVID-19 tools. Therefore, we demand expanding access to all health and COVID-19 commodities by remove the intellectual property as the main barrier through maximization, the TRIPS flexibilities, technology transfer, and not using any dispute settlement for this initiative. Chair, we note the important role recognizing, investing, and utilizing community system and impact response to health. We also note the continued impact by COVID-19 has on health system and impact the abilities of the countries in achieving SDGs 3 targets by 2030. We demand the achievement of universal health coverage by providing access to medical care includes the strengthening of primary health care and sustainable financing by achieve the minimum target of 5% of GDP for public spend on health and support the existing mechanism include the 7 replenishment of the global fund to fight HIV, TB, and malaria and other existing mechanism. Now, G20 is going to summit. We remind that G20 leader of their commitments to leave no one behind and to put people-centered approach for all initiative on health. Our spirit as the civil society is not only recover together, recover stronger, but recover for peoples. Thank you.
For leaders from taxation and sustainable finance, please come to the stage.
From the part of the world that I come from, today is a special day. It's the day when good triumphs over evil. And it's the day when the goddess Durga has killed the demon who had taken over the heavens and the earth. And this is after 9 days of struggle, of strife and war. And really, those of us in the Taxation and Sustainable Finance Working Group had our wars, our struggles, not over 9 days, but over a protracted period of 9 months maybe, because we hold all our issues very close and very dear and we fight for them. And therefore, through a long struggle, we have finally decided on our priority proposals to give to the G20. And today is the day that we actually hand over the policy pack to the G20. And we hope that we are heard and they better hear us. Why is the Taxation and Sustainable Finance Working Group's work so important? Well, the need for economic recovery, like we heard before, during and after the pandemic, along with the need to tackle the climate crisis, social and economic inequities, and the challenges of the digital economy, drive the urgency to reform the global tax system, which we think is broken. Sustainable finance is still a very small part of global finance, and clean energy investment has only grown on an average by 2%. Whereas USD of 4.6 trillion of bank loans and underwriting have poured into fossil fuel financing since 2021 alone. So we haven't learned much through the pandemic. Sovereign debt is a problem that many of our countries are facing. One, of course, we are demanding the cancellation of existing illegitimate debt. And of course, there's new debt that is supposed to fix the already existing debt. So we have a serious issue. And the first thing that there are three streams, as you would have figured out. And from the taxation part of the working group, we say that we need to reform the global tax architecture with a UN tax convention and body. We need to increase revenues for pandemic recovery by taxing the wealthy. And therefore, we have asked the G20 to support the reform of the international tax architecture by calling on all UN members, so all of you back in your countries, please push your own governments to immediately start negotiations for a UN tax convention that would include the establishment of a UN tax body, and mandate for all countries, as suggested, of course, by the finance ministers of the African Union and now the Secretary General of the UN. Meanwhile, most importantly, we believe that no political or economic pressure should be exerted on countries which opt to impose digital services tax like mine did, which we propose should not be lower than 2% of gross revenues. We, of course, think that the profits that some corporations are making are really gross, but okay. We reiterate our demand that the G20 countries must finance their public infrastructure, social protection, and social services through alternative domestic revenue sources, such as the wealth tax. And we also demand that governments remove unfair tax burdens on women and persons with disabilities and adopt progressive, redistributive, and gender equal taxation, including new forms of taxation of capital and wealth. There should be less reliance on consumption tax, as these types of taxes are borne disproportionately by women and persons with disabilities. We ask that tax revenues be raised and spent in ways that promote gender equality and disability, or rather that we move away from disability. Sustainable finance, we thought, is, of course, we demand that the G20 ensures that the principle of a just transition is fully integrated into transition finance. We also demand that the G20 must first ensure the integrity of sustainable finance instruments that include due diligence and verification measures before scaling up their accessibility and affordability to avoid the ubiquitous false solutions with harmful impacts, example, on communities, including women. We reiterate that the G20 membership must accept that it is their responsibility to govern and regulate their financial sectors by improving synergy and coherence on sustainability policies among G20 finance tracks. On the issue of debt, which was our third stream, these were our expected deliverables. And remember, we had a rather long list of expected deliverables, but we're bringing you the top three here. We asked the G20 to promote and engage in an inclusive intergovernmental discussion about a new global debt architecture incorporating social and environmental principles in all financial decisions, and improving coherence among nations by undertaking all loans to and bonds issued by governments of any income level that they be publicly disclosed and details accessible in a global public debt registry, and promote national debt audits, both government audits and independent citizen audits, and improve comprehensive debt sustainability analysis incorporating human rights, climate, and gender justice criteria. They also told us that we must call upon developing new concessional financing and urgent debt cancellation by all creditors to all borrowing countries in need without undue burdens such as conditionality requirements, with a more effective approach to ensure that all private creditors' contributions to debt cancellation and restructuring, and that the G20 support a more timely and orderly debt restructuring mechanism that in the short term extends the eligibility to debt relief under the common framework to all vulnerable countries, providing debt standstills, clarifying and enforcing comparability of treatment by private creditors, committing legislative protection and financial support to debtor countries. Recover together we must, recover stronger we will. We hope that we are heard. Thank you.
Coordinators Working Group of Anti-Corruption Working Groups, please come to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Her and His Excellencies, honorable and distinguished guests. Allow me to deliver the G20 policy brief on anti-corruption working groups, and allow me to open my mic too. Corruption remains at the center of the global challenges that we face, from the conflict of the climate change to pandemic recovery efforts. The G20 has repeatedly expressed commitments to combat the corruption. In 2021, the G20 renewed its commitment to zero tolerance for corruption in the public and private sectors and to achieving common goals in the global fight against corruption. It also adopted the 2022-2024 Anti-Corruption Action Plan that highlighting its priorities for the next 2 years, which informed by the first ever special session of the United Nations General Assembly or UNGAS against corruption. These commitments cannot be realized unless the G20 puts the anti-corruption agenda front and center of all its policy priorities and hold itself to account for implementation of the past of commitments. In terms of process, the G20 has made a progress through communique, a more focused accountability reporting questionnaire introduced in 2020, and the creation of a digital resource library in 2021, for example, but the process is still less transparent than it should be. Implementation of commitment remains a challenge. And priority issues continue to be discussed without enough input from groups that are most affected by the recommended policy outcome. There are 5 main policy packs that has been released by the C20 Anti-Corruption Working Group. The first one is about the open contracting, the transparency of and integrity of corporation, beneficial ownership transparency, combating corruption in energy transition, and also at last but not least is about the anti-money laundering and recovery asset. So the C20 reiterates the need for the G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group to, the first one is build a culture of learning among member countries to identify both successes and failures to better understand the local complexities that delays or prevent implementation of commitment and identify ways to address them through the G20 anti-corruption learning tool. And the second one, prioritize greater engagement with civil society through ongoing consultation with the civil society organization and non-government organizations by sharing relevant outcome document with civil society in timely manner, ensuring deeper engagement of CSO in G20 working group meetings and increasing engagement by the G20 anti-corruption working group with other G20 working group to ensure that anti-corruption is considered a cross-cutting issue. Thank you.
Next, please, for the coordinators working group for education, digitalization, and civic space working group to come to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to Education, Digitalization, and Civic Space Working Group. My name is Imelda Usnadibrata, as the coordinator for EDCS Working Group, and we have Parminder Jet Singh here as the international coordinators, and Rachel Judistari as lead for Digitalization Sub-Working Group, and Gita Damayana as our lead for Civic Space Sub-Working Group. All right, we have 3 themes in this working group, and for education sub-working group, our focus is ensuring safe and inclusive education towards lifelong learning, leading to future employment readiness. First, it's about access to universal, inclusive, and safe quality education. It is to provide access to free, safe, inclusive, and gender-sensitive quality education for all, including children, youth, and adults. Also, to increase and guarantee education financing at all levels to meet the needs of the most marginalized children and youth, and for teacher competencies development, and also to ensure the coordinated work between school authorities, families, and communities stronger for better holistic of every child and youth. The second is about equitable digital and non-digital technologies in education. It is to develop digital connectivity infrastructure and deliver offline and online learning facilities for equal access to education, and also to strengthen safe blended learning strategies for an uninterrupted education system. And the third is about youth empowerment for stronger post-pandemic recovery. It is to invest in providing access to education and vocational training to empower youth with skills required to thrive in the 21st century, and also to expand youth access, both those marginalized ones and also those with disabilities, to the workplace and entrepreneurship opportunities.
And for the digitalizations, okay. So within the digitalizations, we managed to identify 3 key items that is crucial for the recovery together, agenda. First is inclusive digital identifications and health data system. Second is human rights-based approach to cross-border data flows, which is still a very interesting and dynamic concept that civil society are keep discussing. And the last is open and free knowledge. For the inclusive digital identifications and health data system, harmonizations of regulations and mechanism for public access participations is important for data checking. And we have to adopt technology neutral in digital ID to ensure full and meaningful participations of everyone. For the second point on human rights-based approach to cross-border data flows, we would like to recommend G20 leaders to keep a fair balance of data privacy and protections with the equitable distributions of benefits from data and economic rights to data to Global South country. And lastly, on open and free knowledge, we want to emphasize that free open source for education, health, and public goods is important. And to achieve a free knowledge agenda, it is essential for us to maintain access to information and support for free expressions online. Thank you.
Hello everyone, good day. My name is Gita Putri Damayana. I'm representing the Civic Space Sub-Working Group. We are honored. This is the first time Civic Space is formally represented in the C20, and especially the three of us is an almost female in the group. And in terms of civic space as an issue, we are trying to carve history here in Indonesia. And we are here to ask the G20 to protect and expand civic space by creating enabling environment and to build partnership with civil society actors within the C20, within the G20 and C20 context and beyond. Civil society, you are heard. Thank you.
Next, we would like to invite the coordinators working group from Environment, Climate Justice, and Energy Transition to come to the stage.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, dear leaders, dear G20, C20 colleagues. My name is Lisa Wijayani. I am the National Coordinator of the ECE Working Group. I'm here with my colleagues. Unfortunately, we are all women. So my colleague here, Vivian, is from South Korea. She is International Coordinator of our working group. And Anggalia Putri, Kaanggi, is the coordinator of our sub-working group on AFOLU. And before we start to present our policy recommendation, I would like to thank to all our working group members, 200 members in 35 countries around the world, for all your inputs, feedbacks, and also involvement, active participations in our activities. I would like to start with our recommendations. We are representing 3 issues: energy transition, climate justice, climate adaptation, and also the environment. And I would like to start with the energy transition. As you may know that this is one of our priority issues in the G20 of Indonesia. So for the energy transition, we are recommending the G20 leaders to strengthen the G20 energy transition common principles to address the risks within the transition process through measures such as accelerate decarbonization to avoid carbon lock-in, safeguards for socio-economic impact in transition, and aligning energy transition with environmental sustainability. I would like to hand over to my colleagues, Kaanggi.
Thank you, Kak Lisa. From Climate Justice Stream, we are calling the G20 to acknowledge the importance of climate justice by mainstreaming this principle in every G20 deliverables related to climate adaptation and mitigation. And for G20 to take collective action in promoting community-led climate and energy resiliency initiatives to minimize the risk of maladaptation. We call the G20 to establish an action plan dedicated to scale up ecosystem-based adaptation by ensuring inclusivity, support, and participation of the communities. And lastly, G20 must set up mechanisms in their respective countries to protect the civic space and to stop any form of violence and criminalization against environmental defenders. Thank you.
And for environment, we encourage the G20 leaders to accelerate action in achieving 30% of protection of land and sea by 2030. This includes halting forest loss, species extinction, and expanding the coverage of G20 marine protected areas. And we also encourage the G20 leaders to implement national commitments made back in G20 Marine Litter Action Plan by establishing a time frame on achieving a target reduction of plastic production and consumption. And lastly, for finance-related stream of the Environment, Climate Justice, and Energy Transition Working Group, we encourage the G20 to take the chance this year to commit to Paris Agreement and G20 Pittsburgh commitment back in 2009 to rationally phase out fossil fuel subsidies while still ensuring affordable and reliable energy access to the poor. G20 are encouraged to put appropriate, fair, and transparent carbon pricing mechanism to accelerate net zero emission achievement. And lastly, we encourage the G20 leaders of Indonesia and the presidency to pioneer the works of assessing the financial cost of loss and damage, keeping the $100 billion US climate finance pledge in mind. Thank you from our working group.
Next, I would like to invite the coordinators working groups from Gender Equality and Disability Working Group.
Thank you. Good afternoon for everyone. My Excellency, the C20, G20 leaders in the forum. My name is Miko Ferawati. I'm coordinator from Gender Equality Disability Working Group in C20. Actually, gender issue and disability have a big issue and intersectionally in every issue, like in the education, health, climate change, anti-corruption. But we have three priority issue that we processing in our discussion for a long discussion and hard worker. And I want to thank for all friends in a gender equality disability working group who work harder to have a result of the policy pack to G20 agenda. Maybe we have in their side on the room. We have Mas Idos, Justin, Mega, Mbak Bayu, Puspa, Mbak Dini, dan lain-lainnya. Okay, we have three topic issue. The first is economic justice. We have is insufficient commitment of G20 countries to ensure women
persons with disability and all marginalized groups to have decent work with social security, safeguarding, and a healthy environment at workplace. And we still limited recognition from multinational company towards women and persons with disability, like led to SMEs and their exclusion as part of supplier actors in the supply chain system. And we still have high import tax costs on mobility aids, devices, and assistive technology that support accessibility of persons with disability, such as hearing aids, wheelchairs, magnifiers, and other related assistive device of technology. And the second issue is a gender disability-based violence. We still have high case of gender-based violence in the workplace, in particularly the high-risk sector, including plantation, for example, in palm oil plantation and extractives, garments, and domestic and migrant workers to achieve like a Brisbane target and SDGs. And we still have lack of acknowledgement of mitigation the risk of digital-based violence as the result of technology and digital development. And the third issue is a sexual reproductive health and rights. We still have and happen is unfulfilled of the comprehensive education and services on sexual reproductive health and rights. And we have recommendation in economic justice issue is recall G20 countries to share to progress and good practices of the commitment of the Employment and Labor Minister Declaration of the G20 presidency of Argentina in 2080, including to encourage active involvement and meaningful participation of civil society in the process of monitoring and evaluation. And the second is G20 countries shall formulate and endorse the guidelines on inclusive labor market based on ILO and OECD G20 indicator framework for monitoring inclusive labor market for persons with disabilities in all sectors of occupation, including the statistic and data collection and accessibility and reasonable accommodation in the workplace, and to ensure to person with disability person the enjoyment of exercise on an equal basis with the others of all human rights and fundamental freedom based on Article 2 in a UNCRPD. And the third, the G20 countries shall finance an expansion of care service by expanding the country's fiscal capacity and strategic policy intervention for unpaid care work and informal works, especially for women and persons with disabilities, as an indicator to expand to social protection program in all G20 member countries and LMICs SS. And the fourth, the G20 countries should build improved access of capital for women and persons with disabilities by giving a mandate for financial sector to provide financial support for the minimum 10% from the credit portfolio specifically to SMEs led by the women and persons with disabilities. And the fifth, the G20 countries shall apply tax exemption for export and import of assistive device of technology assisting in all G20 members. And for the continued recommendation, I offer to you, Mbak Nuning, to read.
Baik, thank you. Gender and disability-based violence. G20 countries shall develop to ISO 120 policy regarding to recruitment of at least 2% of women with disability and mandatory policy for all complaints in G20 countries. Recall G20 countries to enact safeguard policies to eliminate gender and disability violence in the workplace, particularly in high-risk work sectors such plantation, specifically in palm oil plantation, extra 5 garment and domestic work. G20 countries shall invest to accessible user experience models to ensure better privacy and reporting. Technology facilitate gender and disability-based violence is increasing yet. Reporting remains difficult for survivors and under priorities by digital platforms, which have largely shifted their attention and resources to addressing COVID-19 related misinformation. C20 urges all G20 member countries and multinational cooperation and respective countries to provide safeguarding for all in the digital environment. Sexual reproduction, health, and rights. G20 countries shall include SRHR and the indicator, the assessment to the achievement of universal health comfort, published by WHO to answer the achievement of SDGs 3 targets 3.1 and 3.7 and SDGs 5 target 5 and 3 and 5.6 regarding universal access to sexual and reproductive health service, including family planning, information and education, comprehensive sexuality education as a preventive measure and the integration of reproductive health into state strategies and programs. G20 member countries shall include reproduction health rights as an indicator and benefit in appraising the achievement of universal health cover comprehensively integrated within a health benefit package published by the WHO by integrating in Article 12 and 16 in CEDAW Convention. G20 member countries must report to the G20 summit for achievement and reproduction health rights in accordance with SDGs and CEDAW Convention every year.
Thank you.
Next up, I would like to invite the coordinating working group from Sustainable Development Goals and Humanitarian Working Groups.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, Ambassador of India, Excellencies of leaders of the G20 and also leaders of the C20 and college friends. Please introduce, my name is Samsul Ardiansah. I am the chair of the working group SDGs and Humanitarians. Together with me, sisters Jyotsna Mohans, coming from CIS as a co-chairs of SDGs and Humanitarian working groups. As we all aware, SDGs that has been launched in 2015 is a promise to humanity, that we promise to all people around the world that no one will left behind. No one will left behind in poverty, no one will left behind in hunger, no one will left behind in inequality access to health services and other situations. However, until now, when we are approaching to 2030 as our target to achieve the SDGs, the target of SDGs, we think that still far from, still some target also off track. And when the pandemic happened, the situation is getting worse. And our working groups are focused to the most vulnerable element in the societies that affected by crisis. We have three priority issues. The priority issues is concerns about the humanitarian financings. Why we focus in this kind of these issues? Because we know that right now, for example, in this year, there's at least 270 million people around the world has been affected by crisis, and the crisis has developed into unprecedented scales, both in terms of affected population and also humanitarian funding needed. Conflict and wars has become the main triggers, in addition to disasters, extreme climate change, as well as the pandemic. And by taking into account systemic risks due to humanitarian crisis, the leadership of the G20 are needed to prevent and mitigate the crisis, as well as to end and prevent the war and conflict, and jointly address the humanitarian financing gaps in a flexible, predictable, and accountable manners. The second priority issues of our working group is on protection of labor migrants and remittance cost reductions. Our working group shows that the labor migration is a coping mechanism for the vulnerable peoples that affected by multiple crises in order to survive and improve their living standards. We welcome initiative of and leadership of the G20 through the G20 plan to facilitate and remittance flows as outcome of G20 Australian presidency in 2015, but significant progress in implementation of the remittance cost reduction has been challenged. So that's why in our working group, we again thinking that the remittance cost reductions below 3% is not only about promise that has been mentioned in SDGs, but also it become an instrument to create a just and fair global labor migration governance. The third priority issues from our working group is strengthening the adaptive social protections. Distinguished guests, this pandemic had caused increasing numbers of furloughed employees and create rising numbers of informal workers, and also widening income gap, especially for women, people with disability, refugees, and migrant workers. And we also noted that existing social protection program remains stiff with dispersed targeting schemes and limited capacities to prepare the household to cope with the multiple devastating shock. This is the principal thinking that has been discussed in our working groups. Now for the policy recommendation, I would like to ask my colleagues Josna to continue the presentations.
Thank you so much. So there are following recommendations for the G20 leaders. G20 countries must ensure adequate amounts, multi-year and flexible humanitarian funding, while corollary building and capacity of the local leaders to ensure sustainable pandemic recovery. Funding requirements necessary for humanitarian response that are getting higher and higher to build resilience investments must be met. G20 countries, either as sending or receiving countries, must set remittance cost at only 3% of the funds. For example, SDGs 10C, G20 countries must facilitate safe, low-cost, and fast remittance transfer process with the adoption of digital technology to ensure great financial inclusion among migrant workers. And number 3 is G20 countries must provide adaptive social protection to informal workers, vulnerable workers, refugees, children who are at the risk of human trafficking and child labor, migrant workers, unpaid care workers, and those who are at the lowest bottom least of socio-economic group through the promotion of active labor market policy and flexicurity policies at the universal protection under SDGs 1, 3, 4, 5, and 8. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for all the C20 coordinators working group. Please give a round of applause for our working group coordinators. All right, before we begin the most awaited moment and session after this, let me check for you all too now. C20! C20! Okay, I heard you. All right, so the first, we will have a session where we will hear responses from the G20 governments to accept and bring the C20 policy recommendation to the G20 leaders meeting in November. And the first, we would like to invite the Minister of Finance, Republic of Indonesia, Her Excellency Mrs. Sri Mulyani Indrawati, to share her remarks. And she also regretted that she could not join us today in Bali. However, she will share the views and response to the C20 policy recommendation to the G20. Please welcome Excellency Mrs. Sri Mulyani Indrawati.
Honorable Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Erlangga Hartarto, Bapak Budi Gunadi Sadikin, Minister of Health of the Republic of Indonesia, Ms. Retno Marsudi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Arifin Tasrif, Minister of Energy, Natural Resources and Mineral of the Republic of Indonesia, Honorable Minister of Finance of the Republic of India, Madam Nirmala Sitaraman, and Honorable Chair of C20 Indonesia, Mr. Sugeng Bahagio, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, selamat sore, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, I would like to begin my remark by congratulating the Civil 20 or C20 for successfully carrying out its role as an engagement group of the G20. Since its inception in early 2020, the C20 has become an important partner for the G20. The C20, through advocacy and engagement processes, has ensured that the voice of civil society was heard by the G20. The C20 summit is a culmination of a series of C20 activities under the G20 Indonesia presidency. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia, especially with the presidency of C20, have to manage a very challenging and difficult task. As we are all see that the economic situation globally after quick recovery now facing with a much more complex situation. The war in Ukraine and the following consequences, including skyrocketing commodity prices, has created high inflationary pressure. And this is then forced monetary authority to increase their interest rate and tightening the liquidity. We also witnessing supply disruption from the pandemic and also the war in Ukraine, which exacerbate the global food security and nutrition crisis. Food is becoming more out of reach for many due to high prices and also because of weather shocks. As a result, according to World Food Programme, the number of people facing acute food insecurity worldwide has soared from 135 million to 345 million since 2019. In addition to those complex situations, fertilizers market also becoming so volatile, especially in Europe, because of tight natural gas supply and high prices that cause many producers of urea and ammonia to stop their operation. The fertilizer disruption has created threat to the next crop season. This will potentially deepening the impact of the crisis. If we look at the energy sector, the global energy landscape also has been radically reshaped. The recovery from the pandemic and the war in Ukraine has turned energy prices dramatically, and this is also exacerbating shortage and also volatility. Energy becoming unaffordable. And of course, this is going to also undermine Sustainable Development Goal number 7. With the energy shock, most countries, many of them developing as well as emerging countries, are facing with a very dire consequences. For those countries which is usually have limited capacity to mitigate energy price increase, the energy rationing creating more and more threat to this country. Poverty increased dramatically. Inflation, which is increased dramatically due to the food and energy prices, has also threatening all the progress that we've already made. And of course, also threatening the recovery of the global economy. Given the tightening global monetary policy and liquidity to respond high inflation, many emerging countries will also suffer from capital outflow. They need to be very vigilant. Vulnerability from capital outflow has increased cost of funding and probability of default. So combination of war, increasing commodity prices, inflation has also created a potential debt crisis in low-income country, middle-income country, or even in advanced country. We are all recognized that even before the current crisis, many countries have already been in a high debt position due to various extraordinary measures that they took to address the challenge from COVID-19. World Bank data show that foreign debt in low-income countries rose by 15.5 billion US dollar to about 166 billion in 2020. Foreign debt in middle-income countries increased by 423 billion to more than 8.5 trillion US dollar. This will certainly create an exposure when the interest rate increase sharply. At the same time, 30% of emerging market and countries and 60% of low-income countries are in or near debt distress. This is certainly a very challenging environment for all of us. In addition to this dire situation, we still have to face with the ongoing climate change threat. Climate change have created far-reaching socio-economic impact. This potentially even much more fundamental and significant than the COVID-19 pandemic. If we cannot prevent it, that's definitely create potential calamity globally. Therefore, we need to accelerate the transition to a greener economy. This is to protect our people. This is also to protect the next generation from catastrophic impact due to the climate change. With all those various challenges, the global situation in 2022 is definitely very challenging, and will also continue in 2023. That's why we need strong leadership. We need to continue have a collective action to respond to these complex challenges. Any countries, even the most powerful one, cannot act alone. We must come together to solve these very urgent global economic issues and environmental and climate change threat. If we fail, the world definitely is going to be in a much more dire situation. For all of us in the Ministry of Finance and finance ministers, we have to design our fiscal policy according to the challenge that we have in a prudent way. Fiscal policy and monetary policy, as well as structural reform, need continue to be combined in a harmonized, integrated, and synchronized way. For this, all countries around the globe need to reaffirm the commitment to well-calibrated, well-planned, and well-communicated policy so that it can provide clarity and leadership. It can guide the behavior, especially the market. So we are going to be able to overcome this challenge. Together, we are going to be able to recover, and we do hope that the recovery will be stronger. So the G20 need to take a leading role in the global effort to handle the current crisis. History has proven that G20 can handle challenging situations. We've already have the experience in 2008-2009 global financial crisis. And we also see our response during this pandemic. With the G20, we are able to deliver action for vulnerable countries, especially facing that issue. We also work together to ensure vaccination worldwide. Within G20, we can also commit an extraordinary policy support, especially to support the vulnerable people and small businesses. We know that this was not an easy achievement, given the diverse membership of the G20 and also fragmentation that we are witnessing. We also have different position, views, and experience in many important issues. But all these differences should not make us break, or in this case, not to be able to work together. These differences should become our source of strength. G20 represent the most systematically important country in the global economy. And that's why we have big responsibility to deliver. Ladies and gentlemen, G20 countries are aware that the cost of failure in addressing global challenges is higher than the world can afford to pay. That is why Indonesia, as the G20 presidency, focuses on delivering more action to preserve the G20 reputation as the global premier economic forum for international cooperation. Today, I'm glad to share with you several positive steps that we have taken. Under the finance track, we've already agreed that we must adapt our agenda to maintain macroeconomic and financial stability. We have committed to take prompt collective action and use all available tools to address the current economic and financial challenges that we are facing, including tackling the growing food insecurity. We also agreed to establish a new financial intermediary fund for pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. The commitment, which is already now collected, is in the amount of 1.4 billion US dollar. We have developed G20 presidency note on policy setting for exit strategy to support recovery and also addressing carrying effect to secure future growth. Resilience and Sustainability Trust, or RST, has been established under the IMF. This is to assist low-income and debt-distressed countries so that they can build resilience to external shocks such as climate change and pandemic. We have also seen significant progress in the Common Framework Initiative, especially the Creditor Committee discussion on the debt issue of Zambia, Chad, and Ethiopia. In the G20 Sustainable Finance Roadmap, we also have been developing a transition framework and ways to enhance the accessibility and affordability of sustainable finance. We have also discussed many case studies of transition activity or initiatives to establish and to achieve just and affordable transition. This is including the Energy Transition Mechanism country platform that Indonesia launched during our July meeting in Bali. We also have made progress in developing ways to leverage private sector participation in sustainable infrastructure investment and also mobilizing financing for cities and regions. We will continue working on digital finance inclusion framework because this is important to support undeserved groups, including women, youth, and small, medium-sized enterprises. In the finance track, we also support the discussion on the implementation of the international tax package, while we look forward to the full implementation of the Asia Initiative Bali Declaration on International Taxation. Ladies and gentlemen, the world will face more complex challenges in the future. Therefore, if we want to leave no one behind, it would require a concerted effort from all stakeholders. I hope the C20 continue its role as a platform to voice people's aspiration and work together with the G20, not only providing insight and expertise, but the C20 should also help ensure that governments are accountable for their commitment. On the other hand, I also hope that C20 could help people to understand government policy and their impact. Finally, I hope the C20 summit will be held successfully and become a useful platform for all civil society and organizations and grassroots communities worldwide. Only by working together, we can tackle the global challenges that lie ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency Mrs. Sri Mulyani, for the great acceptance to C20 policy recommendation. It reflects the commitment of the Indonesia presidency of G20 to inclusive process and recognize the voice of civil societies around the world for realizing a just recovery. So next, we still have some speakers. Without further ado, please welcome Mr. Justinus Prastowo, Special Staff to the Minister of Finance, Republic of Indonesia, to the stage and share his response to C20 policy recommendation.
Thank you. The Honorable Chair of the Indonesian Presidency C20, Bapak Sugeng Bagio, Mr. Ambassador, and distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I wish you stay healthy. Previously, we have heard and listen together the speech from Minister of Finance, Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati, and I just want to once again extend our appreciation for the numerous advocacy efforts done in the C20 series, which have been ongoing since March 2022. We greatly value the effort put out by the 7 C20 working groups, all of whom contributed their knowledge, ideas, and solutions available in the policy pack. And thus the G20 policymakers are encouraged to grasp the suggestion and take them into account when implementing policies for sustainable global development. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic has brought attention to the flaw in the global health system and has demonstrated the disproportionate impact it may have on the world's most vulnerable. Therefore, we would like to echo the C20's concern that vulnerable people and marginalized communities should be at the forefront of global health initiative and intervention. In the finance track, as Minister of Finance mentioned before, we also discussed the establishment of FIF, Financial Intermediary Funds, for pandemic preparedness, prevention, and response, PPR. The fund would provide a dedicated stream of additional long-term financing to strengthen PPR capabilities in low and middle income countries, and it is a concrete step toward creating a global health infrastructure for post-pandemic recovery by assuring sustainable and coordinated finance. We also recognize the C20's call for responsible climate change mitigation and adaptation that are geared toward attaining climate justice. We acknowledge the crucial role of sustainable finance to fulfill the Paris Agreement goals. Developing a framework for transition finance, strengthening the credibility of financial institution commitment, and increasing accessibility and affordability for sustainable finance instruments were some commitment in the FMCBG's forum. The Indonesian Energy Transition Mechanism, ETM, country platform has also been introduced in Indonesia, previously introduced in Bali on July. We believe that this momentum is crucial for urging all members and beyond to fulfill their climate financing commitment through concrete action. On gender equality and the right of persons with disability issues, we value the contribution made by C20 members who have assisted in realizing the goal of the creation of a more inclusive and robust economic environment. The approach from the perspective of gender, equality, disability, and social inclusion would be a concern in fiscal policy to create a space of affirmation for the marginalized group. Moreover, we highlighted the importance of considering gender equality in tax policy design. And concretely, we also update all of you that tax and gender equality also discussed seriously in the forum. And we hope Asia Initiative will conclude this in the summit, and we can take more serious action on this. We also would like to acknowledge C20's concern regarding the urgency of fundamentally reforming the global tax system. The COVID-19 pandemic has reduced developing countries' fiscal space. Therefore, we stress the significance of developing countries' involvement in designing international tax standards and implementing base erosion and profit shifting. Actions effectively shown that they may benefit from the OECD initiative to mobilize domestic resources. The G20 members emphasize the need of providing nations with technical help and capacity building assistance in order to carry out the global tax agreement. And on July, Indonesia took an initiative to help Asia Initiative on Taxation. The member from Asia declare initiative and commit to bring tax equality into the main agenda of G20. And we will continue the cooperation and will spread the cooperation globally. Distinguished guest speakers, ladies and gentlemen, it is a good pleasure to witness how we have worked hard, nurturing ideas, exchanging views and experiences, as well as finding policy options among countries. We have a shared goal, but each country may also have different approaches to fit its need and distinct national and economic circumstances. Nevertheless, we could still collaborate and learn from each other. Lastly, C20 has proven that civil society organizations would otherwise be essential to offer solution and serve as watchdog, ensuring that everyone benefit from equitable development and that no one is left behind. And especially after this summit, we will invite the representative, especially from Indonesia, to discuss this recommendation closely with our Minister of Finance and the Chair of Finance Track, so we can together making a better draft to be submitted into the G20 summit. Thank you for all of your contribution, and may we recover together, recover stronger, and equity just for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Justinus Prastowo. And now we're going to move on to the next event, and I would like to invite Mr. Yudo Dwinanda Priyadi, the expert staff of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resource, Republic of Indonesia.
Excellencies, Chair of C20 Indonesia, Mr. Sugeng Bahagio, Sherpa of C20 Indonesia, Mr. Ahmad Tuhan, Ambassador of India and Mexico, distinguished coordinators of C20 working groups and participants, good afternoon for you all. First of all, I would like to convey and apologize that Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources of Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Arifin Tasrif, he is unable to attend this prestigious event due to urgent state duties, and His Excellency expressed his appreciation to C20 for organizing this prestigious event excellently. Please allow me, on behalf of Mr. Arifin Tasrif, to participate in this meeting. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to participate in C20 Summit 2022. My deepest appreciation to Civil 20 as one of engagement groups in the G20 who has committed to the success of Indonesia's G20 presidency by delivering recommendations about the significance of just energy transition, and for reiterating that we need not only clean but also just energy transition as well as countering corruption in the energy transition. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, energy transition is the key to enable sustainable development and improving climate resilience. Therefore, G20 Indonesia presidency has set 3 priorities areas of energy transition that consist of securing energy accessibility, scaling up smart and clean energy technology, and advancing energy financing. The G20 Energy Transition Minister Meeting has agreed on several actions. Among others, the G20 strives to close the gaps in energy access, as well as to eradicate energy poverty. We will improve access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy, recognizing that ensuring such access is a basic human need, including for the most vulnerable population and displaced people. We acknowledge the range of pathways to improve energy access, such as providing solutions in clean cooking and electricity with a modern energy minimum requirement, as well as developing regional interconnectivity. We commit to promote and invest in clean, safe, sustainable technologies and approaches which may include energy efficiency measures and different types of renewables. Other zero and low emission technologies, including abatement technologies as well as removal technologies, taking into account national circumstances and in accordance with the availability of resources. We will boost clean energy investment and financial flows particularly for developing countries in accelerating energy transition. In this regard, we support energy sector action for unlocking and improving inclusive investments, including in upstream, through strengthening project pipelines, enhancing policy and regulatory frameworks, including de-risking mechanism, preparing high-quality bankable projects, and streamlining approvals. In September 2022, the G20 Energy Transition Working Group, ETWG, and the Energy Transition Ministerial Meeting, ETMM, reached an agreement to endorse Bali Compact. The Compact set out 9 voluntary principles for accelerating clean, sustainable, just, affordable, and inclusive energy transition to ensure smooth and effective transition in accordance with national circumstances and priorities. The principles of Bali Compact covers first, strengthening confidence and clarity in national planning, implementation, and review. Second, enhancing energy security, market stability, and affordability. Third, securing resilient, sustainable, and reliable energy supply, infrastructure, and system. Fourth, boosting energy efficiency measures. Fifth, diversifying energy system and mix, as well as lowering emission from all energy sources. Six, catalyzing sustainable inclusive investment at scale for moving towards low or net zero emission energy system. Seven, collaborating on mobilizing all sources of finance to help achieve the goals of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement. 8. Scaling up innovative, affordable, smart, low, and net zero emission technologies. Lastly, building and strengthening innovation ecosystem to boost research, development, demonstration, dissemination, and deployment. In response on the C20 recommendation on just energy transitions, I would like to underline the agreed commitment by G20, ETWG, and ETMM as follows. First, accelerating energy transition should include a wide range of options towards low emission development to achieve net zero GHG emission or carbon neutrality in line with the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. Second, G20 presidency issued Bali Energy Transition Roadmap. One of the action is G20 adopt key principles and guidelines for just and inclusive energy transition with a view to identify priority action for the G20 on the following areas. First one, employment and jobs, social and economic development, and engaging the people in the transition. Second, general equality and behavioral aspect and quality of life. Third, eliminating energy poverty and integrating younger generation in decision making. Next, the G20 energy minister will realize a future-proof and secure energy system capable to withstand shocks and uncertainty by strengthening supply chains, including critical minerals and materials, enhancing resilience, and promoting inclusive investment to meet growing energy demand in line with our sustainable development and climate goals. We recognize that advancing energy security reinforces our agenda to accelerate and ensure just, inclusive, affordable, and viable energy transition. For countering corruption in the energy transition, we emphasize on the needs of active role of related audit and supervisory institutions, including Corruption Eradication Commission, KPK in Indonesia, Supreme Audit Institution, BPK, Finance and Development Supervisory Agency, BPKP, as well as civil society. In encouraging the government to abide by the net zero emission commitment, as well as collaborative action of ministries and other related stakeholders in enhancing the accountability and transparency of the government program related to the implementation of energy transition, especially on the policies. Those institutions have an important role such as ensuring the consistent implementation of net zero emission program, which is accountable and transparent, providing concrete policy recommendation, improving the performance and accountability of public sector institutions. Collaborative action of ministries and other related stakeholders to support energy transitions could be carried out through, among others, supervising the implementation of strategic projects, assistance in the implementation of the audit, providing access to the necessary data and information related to the examination with due observance of the prevailing laws and regulations. Again, thank you for the C20 recommendation. We all in the same page about energy transitions. The transitions must be clean and just. We leave no one behind and make our earth better for the future. Civil society is a pivotal partner for government to ensure this to be happen. I wish your summit will success and produce solid support for the G20 to move forward in accelerating energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yudo. For next, I will check on you guys. Are still, how you feeling today? Good? Hungry? Yes, it's okay. We're going to have proper dinner in the restaurant right after this, but just a little bit more. I already adjust the air conditioner as well. Did you feel cold still? I already turned it more hotter. Okay, so it's good, right? Next, we still have some speakers for today, and I would like to invite Mr. Sigit Reliantoro, Co-Chair of Environment Deputies Meeting, Climate Sustainability Working Groups of the G20, and Director General of Pollution and Environmental Damage Control, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Republic of Indonesia.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Chair C20, Bapak Sugeng Bahagia, Sherpa of C20, Bapak Ahmad Tuchan, Excellency Ambassador of India, Ambassador of Mexico, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Minister Siti Nurbaya, allow me to extend the Minister's sincere appreciation for the opportunity to be here to share the environment and climate perspective on the comprehensive and meticulous prepared C20 policy pack. Recommendations contained in the policy pack truly represent action and ambition needed to transform our impact on the world. The G20 Minister of Environment and Climate have met on 21st August 2022 to put forward, reaffirm, and strengthen their commitment in advancing real impactful action as well as cooperation in environment and climate sustainability at the G20 and beyond. Excellency, on recommendation of inclusive climate action by acknowledging the principle of climate justice and the right-based approach, the Environment and Climate Minister acknowledged the importance of engaging vulnerable groups to tackle climate change, including women, children, youth, indigenous people, and local community in vulnerable situations in coastal zones and cities affected by the adverse impact of climate change. In developing and implementing ocean-based climate policy and strategies, ocean-based adaptation planning and integrated coastal zone management to promote and foster climate justice. On recommendation under resources efficiency in waste management and strengthening the G20 Marine Litter Action Plan made in G20 Japan by targeting the reduction of plastic production and consumption, The meeting recognized that the marine litter and plastic pollution, including microplastic, have significant impact on ecosystem and their biodiversity. And the main source of marine litter and plastic pollution are particularly land-based. Therefore, increasing the circularity and resource efficiency of economy is important for the achievement of sustainable production and consumption, thus contributing to address climate change, biodiversity loss, land and water degradation, as well as pollution, including from plastic. Further, the ministers underlined the need for strong collaboration and cooperation, including on science and knowledge sharing, to enhance implementation of resources efficiency and circular economy, among other approaches, and minimize the negative environment, social, economic impact of consumption and production. The minister recognized the importance to work with all partners and stakeholders at all levels, including the business sectors, to encourage knowledge sharing between businesses and business sector globally. In this regard, the G20 has fully operating mechanism of G20 resources efficiency dialogue and its roadmap of 2021-2023 to promote and share measure, action, knowledge, and good practices for foster resources efficiency and circular economy and other means to achieve sustainable production and consumption pattern. And in collaboration with the government of Japan, G20 is currently developing the fourth annual report of action on marine litter consisting of their respective target and time frame, action as well initiative to reaffirm their commitment to achieve the Osaka Blue Ocean Vision. Further, on the conservation of biodiversity, both marine and terrestrial, and taking concerted action to halve forest loss, species extinction, and expanding G20 marine protected areas, the minister stressed that in addition to conservation, the protection, restoration, and sustainable use of nature are critical to achieve the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its Sustainable Development Goal to halve and reverse biodiversity loss, both marine and terrestrial. The minister committed to strengthen the evidence-based, effective, and holistic action to halve and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030, and to address the direct and indirect driver of biodiversity loss, with particular focus on unique ecosystems such as peatland and mangrove. This action include mainstreaming protection, conservation, sustainable use, and restoration into all policies, working toward achieving a clear, ambitious, realistic, transformative, and robust post-2020 global biodiversity framework, along with its means of implementation, a set of measurable headline indicators, and effective implementation and review and reporting mechanism, and updating national biodiversity strategies and action plan accordingly as appropriate. The minister also made a call on participating delegation to negotiating under UNCLOS to achieve an ambitious and balanced agreement on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of area beyond national jurisdiction. The minister also discussing the importance of establishing an effective management of marine protected areas and effective area-based conservation measure based on the best available scientific information as tool to conserve and sustainably use marine ecosystem and biodiversity. Moving on to recommendation on accessibility of sustainable finance and establishing climate finance principle that avoid creating additional debt to low-income and developing countries, the G20 environment and climate ministers are committed to strengthening policies to enhance the participation of public and private financial institutions and other relevant public institutions in sustainable finance, and also committed to implement of the G20 Sustainable Finance Roadmap. The ministers encourage the further development and implementation of innovative financing instruments that support the protection, conservation, sustainable use, and restoration of nature. On climate finance, the ministers highlight the importance of support for developing countries through capacity building, development transfer, and deployment of technologies and mobilization of climate finance, as well as the coherent finance flow with low greenhouse gases emission and climate resilient development. The minister also made commitment to averting, minimizing, and addressing loss and damage associated with the adverse effect of climate change, including by strengthening policy strategies and governance of comprehensive risk management, including disaster risk reduction, displacement, and non-economic losses. Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you. And next up, we will have Ibu Lucia Rizka Andalusia from the Directorate General of Pharmacy and Medical Device of Indonesia, Ministry of Health. Please welcome Ibu Lucia virtually.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency Ibu Sri Mulyani, Minister of Finance of the Republic Indonesia, Retno Marsudi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, Ambassador of India and Ambassador of Mexico, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am Rizka, Deputy Minister of Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices, Minister of Health Indonesia. On behalf of Minister of Health of the Republic of Indonesia, allow me to deliver response to C20 policy pack. First of all, we will thanks to inviting me to attend this very important event, the C20 Summit, and to deliver my statement in the response to the C20 policy pack and communique. C20 policy pack and communique align with what our G20 Health Working Group has been committed to and working to achieve. I also greatly appreciate C20's commitment and effort to strengthen the global health architecture front and center in its policy pack and communique. This fits in perfectly with our objective to strengthen the global health architecture, most notably by building global health system resilience, harmonizing global health protocol standards, and expanding research and manufacturing hubs for pandemic prevention, preparedness, and responses. These three areas constitute our health priority issues in the G20 Health Working Group. It is also of great interest to me that C20 has working group on vaccine access and global health. This underlines the importance of equitable and rapid access to medical countermeasures such as vaccines, therapeutic, and diagnostic. During the COVID-19 pandemic, We have learned how critical it is for any country, particularly the low and middle income countries, to have timely and equitable access to vaccine, therapeutics, and diagnostics. This employ illustrates the importance of everyone's right, irrespective of their social and economic background, to achieve sustainable standards of physical and mental health. As this has been set out in the C20 policy pack, we are on the same page with C20 on the principle. Ladies and gentlemen, we understand that the pandemic has impacted every aspect of human life. Therefore, we must learn from our response to mitigate the pandemic's impact to recover more strongly and sustainably. In an important sense, timely and equitable access to medical countermeasures and healthcare services is based on the people-centered universal health coverage principle. Under this principle, no one should be denied access to healthcare services and no one should be left behind. Vulnerable groups and marginalized communities should be central to global health strategies and responses. Therefore, the global health architecture that we envision should be inclusive by putting first the needs of those who are vulnerable, communities, and countries with inadequate capacity in health security. I'm also delighted to note that C20 underlines the importance of the central role of the WHO and One Health approach in pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. We continue championing this principle during G20 presidency, mainly through establishing the Finance and Health Task Force, or we call it FHTF. This task force has achieved a significant milestone in their effort by putting in place the Financial Intermediary Fund as a pooled financing mechanism for pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response housed in the World Bank under the central coordination role of the WHO. We are proud to say that growing number of G20 countries have pledged their financial contribution to the FIF, and we hope that more countries continue to support and join this noble initiative. The FIF will be primarily directed to provide necessary funding for addressing gaps in pandemic PPR by focusing on the areas in which improved capacities are needed. Ladies and gentlemen, resilient health system with a rapid and effective response to health crisis will only be able to achieve this with fast and equitable access to medical countermeasures, most notably vaccine, therapeutic, and diagnostic. For this reason, expanding research and manufacturing hubs across different countries and regions is essential to enable rapid and equitable access to medical countermeasures, particularly for low and middle income countries. Up to the present, through our G20 presidency, we have made significant progress in galvanizing G20 member countries and the relevant international organizations to pursue this goal. Several multilateral collaborative efforts have been in place to ensure the expansion of research and technology transfer for strengthening health security capacity under the coordination of the WHO. We hope the research collaboration currently pursued by G20 level will be based on the outcome of gap analysis to ensure science and technology transfer and collaboration can be carried out on the principle of justice and equality. Ladies and gentlemen, as we have experienced firsthand, undertaking international travel during the pandemic has been challenging, particularly with several divergent health regulations and protocols in different countries and posts of entry. Therefore, it is essential to ensure that during pandemic, or other public health crises, people can travel from one place to another without unnecessary difficulties, which may pose significant challenges to society's social and economic life. The health focus on ensuring a harmonized global health protocol standard. And at present, we have made significant strides in this direction by working with relevant international organizations such as WHO and Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, through the G20 piloting project to achieve this goal. Our achievement during G20 presidency will contribute even further, not only in the context of the current pandemic, but for better preparedness and response to future pandemics and other health crises. It will also provide a solid foundation for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, strengthening the international health regulation, and bringing global health challenges under control, particularly those posed by tuberculosis, antimicrobial resistance, and zoonotic disease. Ladies and gentlemen, the policy pack and community will be a great value to all of us, particularly in providing much needed guidance in our collective effort to strengthen global health architecture by putting people at the center of our endeavor. I hope we will always continue creating a strong partnership and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Lucia, from the Directorate General of Pharmacy and Medical Device of Indonesian Ministry of Health. And next, we will welcome Mr. Ambassador, Excellency Ambassador Armando Gonzalez Alvarez Reina, the Ambassador of Mexico to the Republic of Indonesia and Asia. He will joining us virtually.
Members of C20, ministers of the government of the Republic of Indonesia, civil society organizations, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the government of Mexico, I commend the Indonesian presidency of C20, and particularly Pak Sugeng Bahagijo, chair of C20 Indonesia, for leading the work of over 500 CSOs, including international organizations from 65 countries, to produce the C20 communique and Policy Pack 2022, that will be delivered to the G20 leaders next month in Bali. The policy pack is the outcome of months of hard work and deliberations on subjects of capital importance, not only for the G20, but for the whole international community, such as vaccine access and global health, environment, climate justice and energy transition, SDGs and humanitarian issues, education, digitalization and civic space, gender equality and disability, taxation and sustainable finance, and anti-corruption. The world faces a challenging international context resulting from a multidimensional crisis. Today, we experience an unprecedented emergency in health, economy, climate, food, energy, and geopolitics. For this reason, the strong and decisive action of the civil society is imperative to orient, accompany, complement, and legitimate the actions and policies adopted by governments. As the Indonesian G20 presidency has appropriately outlined, our goal must be to recover together and recover stronger. Nonetheless, recovery efforts need to be centered on designing policies to improve the conditions of the most vulnerable and disadvantaged sectors, which unfortunately have been the hardest hit by the crisis. Democracies are obliged to listen to the people's voices and follow the articulated recommendations of civil society. At this point, C20 has played an essential role in these efforts since becoming an official G20 engagement group in 2013. Mexico, as a country with a strong civil society and with a government decided to empower it to create a vibrant participatory democracy, welcomes C20 consolidation, since this assures the G20 leaders listened not only to voices representing the government and business sectors, but also to the proposals and demands of civil society contained in tools such as the Policy Pack 2022. I am confident that the C20 Summit 2022 and the Policy Pack presented today will help to facilitate the participation of the civil society, shape the world we all want, support global recovery, and ensure the success of the G20 Indonesia presidency. I reiterate my appreciation for being part of this extraordinary event and wish you a fruitful participation in the C20 Summit 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency Mr. Ambassador. And finally, last but not least, I would like to invite Excellency Ambassador Sri Manoj Kumar Bharti, the Ambassador of India to the Republic of Indonesia. As we all know, India will be the next G20 presidency, and your point of views are really important to continue the next process of the G20.
Chair, Sherpa, and members of the C20 of Indonesia, representatives of different ministries, civil society representatives from all over the world and G20 countries, ladies and gentlemen who are present here in this room, as well as those who are online. Namaste. Good evening. Om Swastiastu. To my friends from India, Happy Dashera. Let me start by applauding the C20 of Indonesia by carrying out a tremendous job, the reports of which we have seen in today's deliberation. I know this is the fag end of the day, and even the MC has lost her enthusiasm. I do not know whether I should sing Kuch Kuch Hota Hai to bring back your... Civil 20 has been an important engagement group of the G20. The voice of civil societies matter a lot to all democratic governments. At this point of time, I am only left with telling you something about what India intends to do in its forthcoming presidency. As the G20 president, India hopes to identify, highlight, develop, and strengthen international support for priorities of vital importance in diverse social and economic sectors, ranging from energy, agriculture, trade, digital economy, health and environment to employment, tourism, anti-corruption, and women's empowerment, including in focus areas that impact the most vulnerable and disadvantaged. India is committed to focusing on issues of critical importance to the world. The world at large is recovering from the impact of the pandemic. India believes that a conversation on economic growth with sustainability is the need of the hour. G20 has been a significant voice on the global stage on issues of socio-economic importance. G20 should lead the discussions on how countries can work together to ensure return to a path of economic growth, but one which is rooted in sustainability and sustainable lifestyle. I would like to highlight that India and the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has been giving this slogan called LIFE, L-I-F-E, which says lifestyle for environment. And Indian presidency intends to take this holistic approach on how to deal with the situation currently facing the world. Digital transformation has been an important pillar of Indonesia's G20 presidency. India believes that digital technology and digital public platforms are key to deepening engagements of government with citizens, civil societies, and vice versa. Digital solutions to traditional problems have transformed and elevated the lives of people across the world. During India's presidency, we should like to help take this discussion forward. At the G20, we will seek to internationalize our approach on digital public goods to utilize data for common good and development. The world needs new and innovative approaches to tackle today's complex challenges. Digital technologies present us with the tools to deal with some contemporary challenges. We would also stress the need to protect and promote interests of micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs, small and marginal farmers, local food culture, and traditional knowledge, as well as the use of digital technologies. Our focus would also include sustainable energy transitions, accelerating progress towards SDGs, supply chain resilience, disaster risk reduction, eliminating plastic waste, fugitive economic offenders, countering terrorism, and robust multilateralism. The G20 needs to work to create post-pandemic resilient societies. Sustainable lifestyles need investment in education, nutrition, and health. We need to work with our partners to promote and mobilize investments in these vital sectors for the benefit of all, especially the developing world. Sustainable, holistic, responsible, and inclusive growth are the key elements upon which India's approach to G20 presidency would rest. Thus, our priorities are to bring the climate and development agendas together, accelerate progress towards achieving the 2030 SDG agenda, furthering development cooperation, supporting small and marginal farmers, enhancing food security and nutrition, addressing global skill gaps, promotion of blue economy and coastal sustainability, digital health solutions, green hydrogen, and tech-enabled learning. India also hopes to bring to the G20 discussion a focused conversation on disaster risk reduction and hear the voice of the civil society. On behalf of Government of India, I assure you that civil society's work will continue to be strengthened during our presidency. As I will not be present here tomorrow, I have requested the organizers and the C20 chair to give the responsibility and the flag to the representative of the G20 Secretariat in the Indian presidency, and I'll be glad to inform my secretariat about this. I wish all the best to the hard work done by all the group leaders, as well as hope that their recommendations are given enough space in the final summary from the Leaders Summit. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Excellency Ambassador Sri Manoj Kumar Bharti. And Before we end tonight's event, I would love to invite some of the people to take a picture in the stage. So I would like to invite C20 Chair, Co-Chair, Sherpa, Sue Sherpa, Steering Committee and International Advisory Committee to come and have a photo session together. So please come to the stage. I would like to invite to the steering committee also and the international advisory committee to come to the stage, please. C20, you are heard. All right, we are now arriving at the final moment of today's event. I want to remind you, don't miss C20 Parallel Side event tonight at 7 until 9 p.m. and tomorrow starting at 9 until 1 p.m. Indonesian Central Time, where you can participate in the interesting choice of thematic discussion. We will also have a fun bazaar tomorrow, just like today. So if you feel like shopping for sustainable product, meeting grassroots communities, or simply talking with the booth representative of local SEO, please don't forget to check the bazaar layout tomorrow for day 2. We will start the event at 2 p.m. tomorrow, so don't be late. Alright, so before we close today's event, I would like to remind the media college and interested participants to attend the C20 Summit Press Conference today at 6 until 7 p.m. right after this closing in Sawangan 4 room. The C20 Secretariat's media team will escort you to the room. So finally, on behalf of the committee, we would like to say thank you very much for joining us today. Enjoy the next session tomorrow. I'm Veronica Klasasari, signing out.
People of the world, we are participants, we will have a dinner on Grain Restaurant. So for all participants,
People of the world, we are in jeopardy. Striving times come back to solidarity. Our wish to heal the world, we shall do whatever must be done.
Recording.